Well, first off, thank you so much, Diana, Auditor Diana, for coming on the podcast and donating your time. I greatly appreciate you. Just seriously, thank you. That's
Thank you. It's great to be here in my office with you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming here.
Yeah, I will say it's been years since I've been to the last time I've been here in the State House is probably when I was like in elementary school. So it's good to see the architecture and the beauty within it. It's just stunning. It's definitely stunning out there.
I feel like that's most people. Most people come into the building and they look at the kind of historical nature of the place. And when they come into my office, I mean, it's kind of interesting to check out that the walls are bright yellow and we still have all of these old paintings on the walls and what have you. But it is beautiful. I'm very grateful to get to work in this historic building. But it was grateful to be in New Bedford just yesterday.
I just missed you.
Sorry I missed you while I was there, but I was there just yesterday talking to some local advocates and some of your local elected officials, your city councilors, your school committee members there. So great to be in town and then great to be back in Boston today.
Yeah, hey, no, your time's valuable. I know you fully understand that and want to try to get as many questions, hopefully, that the Massachusetts individuals can get a more clear understanding of the audit and what's going on in their state. So what does the audit allow you to do that you couldn't before?
So first and foremost, I want to just say I am the Auditor of Massachusetts, but I don't audit any of you, the individual tax-paying residents. I audit government for you. So I'm not the IRS. I'm not the Department of Revenue. I actually audit state government agencies and departments to make sure that government is working efficiently and effectively for the everyday workers who want to know that their tax dollars are being spent appropriately. And we do so with the intention to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in different government entities, but also to make sure that there's programmatic integrity in the different departments that we audit. So for example, we audited the MBTA. We audited the MBTA multiple times. We looked at performance and safety at the MBTA, making sure that the MBTA knew about some of the safety challenges they had, that they need to make sure all their employees are trained, because we did find some gaps in the way that employees were being trained and not trained. Also found areas for cost savings with respect to the Keolis contract. Keolis is the company that actually works with the MBTA to manage the commuter rail stations across the Commonwealth, and made recommendations to them about how they can perform better and how they can save money for the tax-paying residents of the Commonwealth. We also audited the Department of Children and Families recently, and we looked at areas where DCF can make their services work better for the children who are receiving mental health services. A lot of these kids enter into the system and into the state's custody through no fault of their own, and they come from a lot of times really traumatic circumstances where they've experienced really just tragic circumstances at home. They ended up in the system, and a lot need access to mental health services. We found that DCF wasn't providing proper oversight to the distribution of antipsychotic drugs, psychotropic medications, and we called for them to ensure that these kids were getting access to the mental health services that they need access to, including access to a therapist or a behavioral health specialist. So we look at these different state agencies, and then we make recommendations for how they can improve services for every resident of the Commonwealth, especially for our more vulnerable populations. And then, yes, you hit the nail on the head with that question of this 72% voter mandated audit of the state legislature. State legislature works right in this building at the State House where we are currently right now.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is fitting that our office is painted bright yellow because we are the folks that try to bring sunshine to state government, and we are working on several sunshine initiatives. But the one that most people know about is the 72% voter mandated audit of the legislature that passed on the ballot last election cycle that we are working to implement. We have been stonewalled by the state's attorney general and by legislative leaders who are flat out denying the voter mandated law. And they're basically saying that the law doesn't apply to them. Yeah. And what they're trying to tell the taxpaying residents of Massachusetts is that essentially they don't really care that people voted for the 72% mandate. They think that it's unconstitutional, so they're just going to flagrantly break the law. We are seeking access to the courts right now, but unfortunately our state's attorney general has decided to represent the speaker and Senate president against us in court. So she is fighting for the speaker and the Senate president against our office and the 72% of people who voted for this in court, and she has taken their side in saying that essentially she doesn't think that the courts should be able to make a determination on the constitutionality of this law. We're just trying to get this law enforced, but we're up against some pretty powerful power brokers right now. So we need all the support that we can get from folks out there who want to see this audit get conducted.
No, exactly. And actually, to continue on what you're saying, so is there any actual evidence and concerns that are legitimate that the AG is pushing, or is it just kind of just politic puppetry kind of thing?
Yeah, the AG, I totally hear you. The AG had the opportunity when she vetted the ballot questions for constitutionality to raise a flag at that time and say if she thought it was unconstitutional. The fact that the AG and the AG's office deemed this ballot question as constitutional before allowing it to go forward to the ballot really says it all. What happened is the AG was given a 12% increase to her budget, and, then things change. So I fully believe that there's a quid pro quo between the Speaker and the Senate President and the AG's office, where she got a huge budget increase in the millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to her budget at a time when our local district attorney's offices were only seeing a roughly 3% increase. She was getting a 12% increase. So that's 4 times the amount of our local district attorney's offices. And our local DAs are the ones that take the vast majority of cases in our district courts. I think that there was a quid pro quo there, and that seems like the Attorney General changed her mind once funding was on the table. But the AG claims that she supports the audit, but yet she's never once met with me in my entire life. The Attorney General's never met with me, not one time. I've been actually practically begging for the Attorney General to meet with me in public so that folks can actually ask questions of both of us, so they can get their questions answered about why this audit isn't getting done. But the Attorney General won't even meet with me. She's never met with me privately, and she won't meet with me publicly. Yet she claims she's on our side. Respectfully, if she was on our side, then I think the Attorney General would have taken time to meet with me at least once during the time that I've been in office. I've been the state auditor for, over 3 years now, but yet the Attorney General still hasn't met with me one time. And she's currently representing the Speaker and Senate President against us in court. So, you can say all day long that you support something, but actions speak a lot louder than words.
And actually goes to my question. Do you think more resistance from, their very government that the people elected into power, does it hurt their trust in that very government institution in themselves for them not going with what they vote? Yeah.
Totally. Look, we talk about the lobbying, the law and democracy being undermined all the time at the federal level. All the time we hear it being talked about. And we need to make sure that we are having those conversations, because we need to stay vigilant with threats to democracy at the federal level. But that doesn't mean to ignore the threats to democracy that exist right here at home at the state level. When we have the top leaders of this Commonwealth flagrantly just breaking the law, and the people who have the ability to enforce that law just refusing to do so, and then taking the side of the people who are breaking the law, that undermines the people's faith in their state government. And it frankly should. My faith has been undermined in our state government right now because of the actions of our top officials. My faith in the courts is really, really just at an all-time low, unfortunately, because we just had a judge essentially say that we didn't even bring an argument, a legal argument to the court. Respectfully, yes, we did. We brought a very strong legal argument to the courts to make our case to be able to get this taxpayer-supported initiative enforced, to be able to get access to an attorney of our choosing to represent us. The Attorney General conflicted herself out of representing us when she chose to represent the Speaker and the Senate President. But the current judge that we're dealing with right now is essentially saying that she doesn't think that we have a right to an attorney. That's a violation of due process. We have something called civil rights under our Constitution that gives us access to an impartial hearing in the courts and gives us the right to an attorney. So right now we have not a lot of faith in our judicial system and our state government. And I'm just part of millions of people. I'm one of millions of people who right now just has lost faith and trust in our state government systems. And I'm trying to work to restore our faith in these systems. But, I get it when people say, well, you can't trust folks in government. because I'm seeing it myself right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be the case. I want people to be able to trust their government. That's why I've been pushing for these initiatives. That's why I've been trying to fulfill the will of the voters and get this done, because I do believe that there are a lot of good people in government. I do believe that there are a lot of good legislators. I believe that there are a lot of good judges. I just think that right now that the way folks are acting and behaving is unbecoming of what Massachusetts deserves in terms of the leadership that we need in the state. So, we're fighting hard and we're pushing back, and hopefully the powers that be will hear us. If not, the voters are going to make sure that they're heard once again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little overwhelmed with just how much is like this whole situation of the individuals literally getting smacked in their face by their own elected officials, even though
it's hard to believe, right? You don't want to believe it because you want to believe the best, right? And I'll tell you something, when I first started working on this, I actually gave the benefit of the doubt to people like the Attorney General, for example, right? And I came out and I was asking for her support, and I was like, oh, Madam Attorney General, please support us in this initiative. Please enforce the law. Yeah. And I was like, I think she's really going to be on the side of the people. This is a great opportunity for us to stand together and support transparency and support something that the people approved to the tune of 72%. And, I got hit with the harsh reality that there are a lot of people who are friends. There are a lot of people that talk behind the scenes up here and that are putting, unfortunately, their office's budget and their own political, aspirations above what the people said they want at the ballot box. The people were very clear. It doesn't matter if you supported this or didn't support this when you went to go vote. The reality is that it won on the ballot, and elections do matter, and it became the law, like it or not. So if these people don't like it, too bad.
No.
The people voted for this, and this is what the people decided. And, we need to stop allowing our leaders to undermine the results of the election and try to be, essentially denying fully the results of the election. The election happened. You might not like the results, but it happened. The people who got elected, and the ballot initiatives that passed. And this one passed by a very large margin. So they need to follow the law, follow the will of the people. The will of the people reigns supreme in Massachusetts, not the will of the politicians. The Constitution is there to protect the people, not the politicians as they want us to believe.
Exactly, and they forget who they work for. So many people are moving out of Massachusetts because the opportunities are just running thin and the cost of living is just absurd.
I'm going to tell people, please do not move out of Massachusetts because we need you here. If you are a good person and you want to contribute, please stay here, contribute to our communities. We need good people to stay here, and we need good people to run for office. There's a lot happening, and there are a lot of shenanigans happening in state government and local government right now. And if you see some shenanigans happening in your hometown or at the state level, you should run. You should consider running. That process is there and exists for everyday people to get access. I never thought that I was going to be running for office. I was talking with you and some of the folks helping on this video podcast before this about how I grew up singing and I like to play the piano. I like to sing. I'm involved in music. And I actually thought that I would be running a youth center at this point in my life. But I ended up getting a job right here at the State House right out of college. And I learned about the impact that government can have on community spaces that I never really learned about while I was growing up. And I fell in love with the work in this building. But I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of shenanigans that happen amongst some of the electeds, and it's not right. And we need good people to step up and lead. We need good people to step up and speak out. And we need good people to get elected to these positions. And don't be intimidated if you've never been in politics or government before. I think that people are looking with people who are unique, who are authentic, and who lead with integrity. And I think that that's something that's missing in a lot of these different positions right now. And people are looking for new leadership. So
if the audit does go through, what kind of transparency would the public actually see? Like, I know you did touch it a little bit, but
right now, all we're trying to get access to, believe it or not, is just their financial receipts and their state contracts. Isn't it insane that they have not provided not even one financial receipt to the Office of State Auditor, they're acting like it's unconstitutional to get access to how the taxpayer dollars are being spent. We're calling BS. Those taxpayer-funded documents, they should be a matter of public record to every single person in this Commonwealth, but because the legislature exempts itself from the state's public records law, people can't even get access. So every other state in the nation actually, well, let me put it to you this way. Massachusetts is the only state in the nation that allows for its judiciary, which is the courts, the governor's office, and the legislature, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate, to exempt themselves from the public records law that every other state entity has to follow. We're the only state in the nation that allows for that. Yes. So what's happening right now is that these folks don't have to make their documents accessible to you, the people at home who might just want access to a document that you pay for. Your taxes pay for these things. And they won't even allow your Office of State Auditor to review them. Now, they act like we're trying to get access to crazy types of documents. Like they'll act like we're trying to get access to their personal text messages. Yeah. No, we are not trying to get access to their personal texts, their personal emails, nothing like that. We are just trying to get access to their state contracts and to their financial receipts. But the Attorney General of this Commonwealth is trying to say that the most powerful politician in Massachusetts, the Speaker of the House, that his emails should be exempt, his official emails, we're saying, about state contracts, for example, or about taxpayer-funded expenditures in the millions of taxpayer dollars even, that his emails should be exempt from public disclosure, and that the Constitution is there to protect the Speaker of the House. That's what the Attorney General of this Commonwealth is saying right now. She's going to bat for the Speaker of the House and saying that his emails are constitutionally protected. I've never heard such baloney in my entire life. The Speaker of the House's emails are not constitutionally automatically protected from public disclosure. If they are sent on the public server using taxpayer dollars and have to do with the expenditure of taxpayer funds, that's absolutely subject to public disclosure. Under the public records law, but unfortunately the Speaker exempts himself from the public records law. So, we are trying to get access in the Office of State Auditor right now. They keep saying that they don't want us to have access, which means that none of you have access either, because we would make those documents available to you, the people in our communities, and they don't want that. So we all want to know, essentially, what are they hiding? What are they hiding? If they can't make their basic taxpayer-funded expenditures available to the general public, why? It's just an audit. And let me just say something, too. We, generally speaking, find areas for improvement in these different state entities because humans work there and not robots, right? So there are human beings working in these agencies. It is not uncommon for us to find areas for improvement. And that doesn't mean that people are doing a bad job. It doesn't mean that there's just automatically corruption or something wrong in these state agencies. It's just that we'll find areas for improvement. And sometimes it's something as basic as filing errors that we'll detect, and we'll say, oh, you should have put the purple document in the purple folder, but you accidentally put it in the yellow folder. Yep. Here's a better system of organization. Here are some areas for improvement. Sometimes we'll just recommend some best practices to just help these agencies to work better. Yeah. And many times there's not even anything that's really wrong, but we have an office full of auditors. They go in and they say, here are some ways to improve. And it's for anyone, business. Yeah, exactly. We're there to provide a service because they can't, necessarily find areas for improvements themselves because they're busy doing the job, right? So we come in while they're working and we say, here are some ways you can become more efficient. And many times they say, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Yeah. That's what we're there to do. So we're not the FBI, we don't go in and toss desks, flip over tables, confiscate laptops or anything like that. No, we don't do anything like that.
Come on, make it badass. Come on. They're flipping tables, all right?
But isn't it so funny? That's what they act like we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, you guys. I mean, all we're doing is trying to conduct an audit. And sure, we're going to find some areas for improvements, but just take the recommendations and say, thank you, and we can all move on. Yeah. But for them to be afraid of an audit, if you're afraid of an audit, what are you afraid we're going to find? Because you shouldn't be afraid for just some areas of improvement, to be recommended to you. That's something that we all need to deal with. We have peer reviews happen of our office even, and they say, hey, you can make improvements here, you can make improvements there. We found some areas where, you could have done a better job with X, Y, and Z. And we'll take it and say, thank you so much and move on. That's what they're there to do. I mean, we all need to take those recommendations. And normally different state entities take it. Again, the legislature just considers themselves to be above the law, and that's concerning.
So what does happen though if they do ultimately block this audit? Like what can you do at that point? Do you bring it to Supreme
The
Court?
residents need to stand up, and you need to speak out. You need to speak out and let people know that this is unacceptable. Let your elected officials know that this is unacceptable. They're going to look right back at you and probably try to tell you, oh no, the auditor doesn't understand, or you just don't understand. No. Don't let them tell you that, okay? What they'll try to do is they will try to make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about, or like we don't know what we're talking about. It's, same game, different name, usually speaking, where, different people who are trying to cover for each other will try to make excuses. But the reality is, well, why won't you just release the receipts? Yeah. What's the big deal? Oh, no, the Constitution, this and that. Call bullshit, okay? Just call bullshit. The Constitution is there to protect the people, not the politicians. Tell them, okay? Tell them that we have a right to view taxpayer-funded receipts, taxpayer-funded state contracts, and if they're telling you all the excuses why you don't have a right to read the receipts, call bullshit and say, thank you, but no thank you. We want access. We're the tax-paying residents of the Commonwealth, and we want to know how our money's being spent. Yeah, and like you said, it's like they have to be accountable. It's literally off the individual's dime that they're even working, that they have the lifestyle. Yeah, they're going to say, oh, go online and view all the information on this website. But when you go online and you view the information on the website, all that's there is their claimed expenditures. It's not an itemized set of receipts. And what they want to essentially say is, well, they don't have to show the receipts, that we should just blindly believe them and believe that what they're saying is true. The Office of Comptroller lists all of the claimed expenditures for different state offices. We go in as the auditors and we audit to make sure that what they claimed they spent the money on is actually what they spent the money on. Gotcha. So if they're not letting us verify and they're telling us trust but don't verify, no, we're not going to just trust you. We trust but verify. Yep. And I don't think that's too much to ask, is that we get to see the documentation to back up what they say they spent the money on. I know we can confirm those potholes ain't getting filled, that's for sure. That was a big one. We probably bring it home.
Put like a 6-foot chair in there, honestly. You can have a whole bar if you wanted to. Speakeasy. It's great. Well, honestly, I told people at a hearing that I was at recently, I was like, look, I brought just like some random receipt that, my staff handed me, and it was actually funny because it was for like 3-ring binders or something that we got for this office. Yeah. And I put them on the table and I said, I don't think it's too much to ask for receipts to just back up that you spent money on what you spent money on. For example, here's a receipt from my office that backs up the fact that we bought office supplies. I said, look, you can see very clearly here, we bought 3-ring binders. So for anyone who's concerned with why we didn't buy 2-ring binders instead, or, whatever, why we bought these 3-ring binders instead of manila envelopes, you can get the records right here, and it reflects, that we purchased these, where we purchased these. It's not that big of a deal, and, people can agree or disagree with the expenditure on 3-ring binders, but at least it's available for you to review, right? And it just builds the public's confidence in their state government when you can get access to receipts. Look, I actually said to people in a room recently, I said, how many people have made a public records request recently? And they, like 2 people raised their hands in a room full of like over 100 people. So there's a very small amount of people that actually made a records request of their government. Wow. And I said, okay, so not many people even made a public records request, but how many would feel more comfortable, even if you're never going to make a public records request for some of these receipts, how many people would feel more comfortable just knowing that you would be able to get access to this information if you wanted to? And then everybody's hands went up, right? And I think that's a part of it, right? Is just knowing that even if you're not gonna be a person that's gonna look up what's happening yourself,
just knowing that you could get access if you wanted to, it makes us have a lot more confidence in our government, right? So, that's what we're asking for. We're asking for these state leaders to just help to instill more confidence in the electorate and in the voters of Massachusetts, in the tax-paying residents, because right now they don't have a lot of confidence in their government over the simple issue that their government leaders are refusing to release the records. Even if you're not going to be someone who's going to request the records, just knowing that they refuse to release the records is a cause for concern.
Exactly. If I have to exit Walmart and they have to check my receipt every time, you think the elected officials in public office would not mind at all, you know what I mean?
You would think.
Yeah. Well, out of this whole process, what has surprised you most about the whole thing? Is it just how much pushback you've gotten?
It's the level of arrogance. It's the level of arrogance.
Okay.
I get it that they are upset that they lost. Okay, at the polls, and that 72% of the voters came out and said they want this audit to happen, even in the face of them hurling personal insults my way, trying to call me all sorts of names, trying to tell people that I'm not smart or intelligent enough to be able to do this job, telling the voters of this Commonwealth that they're not smart enough or intelligent enough to know what they voted for, insulting even the electorate who went out to vote for this. But I know it's hard for them to accept it, but they lost, okay? So they lost. They are acting like sore losers, and they are violating the law. And I think just the flagrant disregard for what the people voted for is the most shocking, because I fully expected for them to give us a hard time, but I didn't expect them to be so arrogantly opposed to the will of the people. They always have been disrespectful towards me, if I'm being real with you, since I started here as a younger woman in my 20s in this building. If it wasn't during the time that I was being sexually harassed when I was a legislative aide in this building, then it was during the time that I was a state representative where they would just patronize and talk down to me. Look, I was the youngest woman serving in the House of Representatives when I was a state representative. Then I was the youngest woman serving as a state senator during my 4 years serving in the state Senate. And now I'm the youngest constitutional officer in the Commonwealth. Yeah. So I am used to them patronizing and talking down to me. That I'm used to. What I didn't expect was for them to talk down to every single member of the general public the same way that they talk down to me. I think it's incredibly arrogant, and I think that they need to retire. The Speaker and the Senate President need to retire. They need to move on, and they need to make way for people who are able to work with the taxpaying residents of this Commonwealth and follow the law. It's unacceptable that they don't want to follow the law. It's unacceptable that they're so flagrantly disregarding the will of the people and not even working together with us. I just think that there's no place for that type of behavior in this building, and we're going to keep fighting like hell for the tax-paying residents to be respected and for this job to get done and for the will of the people to get fulfilled. Thanks so much for having me.
Anything else you would like them to know?
If anybody would like to contact our office, you can go to www.mass.gov/auditor, or you can email auditor@massauditor.gov. Thanks so much.